All right, so we are on Thomas Pynchon's short novel, The Crying of Lot 49, Chapter 2, which is a hysterically funny chapter that examines Baudrillard's world of hyperreality. That's totally what's going on in this chapter. We have shifted from the realm of V and the realm of mechanics, the realm of Lewis Mumford, which I did confirm, by the way, that he read. One of the commentators quoted from a letter that he sent to someone saying that he had read Lewis Mumford. So that was confirmed. Lewis Mumford is the presiding genius in his different phases of the evolution of technics for that novel, V. Here we've moved into the world of McLuhan. McLuhan had just in 1964 published Understanding Media, the book where he exploded onto the stage and became an overnight celebrity just shortly thereafter. In the late 60s, he was on every talk show you could think of. So he's a huge celebrity. And so I'm sure that Pynchon would have been aware of him. This novel was published in 1966, probably written in 65, but it's set in 1964. And so Oedipa Maas is exactly 28 years of age. So she's still very young here. So the novel then begins with her deciding to drive down to the town, one of these sort of Californian edge cities, as I think, is it Joel Davis who called them edge cities. They're just these bland, homogeneous business park, office park places with a simple post office and a strip mall, and it's called San Narciso. So it's a fake city that Pynchon has made up, and specifically invoking the myth of Narcissus. And Narcissus, the myth of Narcissus and Echo, the motel room that Oedipa drives to is called Echo Courts, and it has a big nymph standing out in front of it with a dress blowing like Marilyn Monroe. Big nipples on her breasts, clearly a total tramp. So it's the presiding myth of this chapter. And so the myth of Narcissus and Echo is that Echo has had a curse put on her to where she cannot initiate any conversation. She can only echo the last words of other people's sayings. Whatever they say, she can echo the last words. So she's incapable of initiating conversation, but she falls in love with this beautiful young man named Narcissus. And she approaches him, and he spurns her and rejects her, and so she just fades away to become the echo effect that we encounter out in nature with canyons and so forth. That is her fate. But then Nemesis punishes Narcissus with falling into unrequited love. And what he doesn't realize is that this love is going to be of himself, so he finds his image in a lake, and he falls in love with his own image. And it paralyzes him. He can't do anything. He just lies there by the side of the lake, paralyzed with his own self-love. And he becomes, of course, the Narcissus flower. So he's one of these flower gods. This is an important myth because for McLuhan, the Narcissus myth was one of the central myths that describe the process of media. Media has a narcissistic effect, and we'll see this narcissism, how it works in this chapter, insofar as it extends our sensorium. For McLuhan, all technologies are extensions of the human soma. The wheel is an extension of the foot, let's say, or the central nervous system is an extension, is extended out into the computer. The computer outers the central nervous system. Clothing is an extension of the skin. Our houses are extensions of the immune system. So everything is outered, but in outering and extending the human soma, it also numbs. It has a corresponding feedback effect where it numbs the organ that is extended. And in the case of Narcissus, the image narcotizes him. He's like a drug. He's narcotized, mesmerized by his own image. And so he becomes numbed. And this is exactly what media do to us. During the great media explosion, the postmodern analog media explosion of the 60s, that McLuhan was the first to really theorize about and to invent the discipline of media studies, along with Harold Innis. And he also read Lewis Mumford as well. So the town of San Narciso is named after Narcissus because we have the motel Echo Courts. So that is to be kept in mind. So she drives down there on a Sunday, and because it's a Sunday, it looks dead. There's no activity, no one's out and about. It's like she's driving through a ghost town. And at one point, she drives along past one of the local outlets for Yoyodine, which we had met with in V, was founded by Bloody Chicklets. His name isn't mentioned here, Bloody Chicklets as a toy company first, but then it evolved into a defense contractor, the largest defense contractor in V on the East Coast. And now here we find one of its outlets on the West Coast. And this passage is already pregnant with Gravity's Rainbow, because as she drives by it, the entrance to the Yoyodine complex is guarded by two 60-foot missiles on either side, and the name Yoyodine lettered conservatively on each nose cone. So there are the missiles that are on the way for Gravity's Rainbow. Each of Pynchon's novels, note, is pregnant with the one that comes after. That's why it's important to read them in chronological order. And then so she winds up at Echo Courts, this sleazy kind of motel room place, and she goes in to check in, and the guy who's at the desk is named Miles, and he's a dropout, a 16-year-old dropout who now is wearing a Beatles haircut and a mohair suit. So the British invasion has taken place here in 1964 when the Beatles went on the Ed Sullivan Show, and now everybody wants to be the Beatles. Everyone wants to be one of these electronic avatars, where rock music now, unlike jazz, takes electricity and plugs it in. Once you plug it in, you don't get this effect in jazz. What you get in jazz is syncopation, discontinuity. It's a cool medium that requires fill-in on the part of the participant because of the syncopation. But it doesn't have electricity going through it. And when you send electricity through a medium, all kinds of effects take place. Feedback is one of the major effects of the star, who generates avatars of himself as clones in the realm of what Baudrillard called hyperreality. And when he came to America, Baudrillard came to America and he loved the place. His book on America, you would expect from this snooty postmodern Frenchman, you would expect it to just be a put down of America. But if you actually read that book, and it's a very good introduction to Baudrillard, I highly recommend America. He loves the place. And he's like, what you guys need to stick with, forget about your insipid California wines. They're a joke, and your museums are silly. What you guys do best is theme parks, amusement parks, and the realm of the hyper-real. Why go to the Taj Mahal when you can go to Las Vegas to a casino in the shape of the Taj Mahal or in the shape of the pyramids? These are simulacra. These are simulacra of historical places, and the West Coast in particular is infected with this. You get Venice Beach as a lame attempt to recreate Venice with the canals. And here we'll see one of these places called Fangoso Lagoons. And Disneyland is, of course, the ultimate place of the spatialization of temporal epochs by putting Tomorrowland next to Frontierland, next to the realm of Grimm's fairy tales with the castle and Cinderella and so forth. That's the spatialization of time by taking out historical epochs and just juxtaposing them next to each other. We create this hyper-real realm of simulacra. But the thing that Baudrillard says about the hyper-real is that it's more real than the real, and hence we prefer it. At least Americans do. And I think it's spread across the planet, of course, this preference for the fake. We prefer Cool Whip, let's say, over real whipped cream. We prefer the fake thing. There is a simulacrum even in Europe of Lascaux. You can't go into the actual cave, but over here we have a simulacrum. You can visit Lascaux via our simulacrum. Same thing with something like the dinosaurs with Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, they're hyper-real. And if we brought back real dinosaurs, it would be a disappointment because we would prefer the more real than real dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. We prefer porn because it's more real than sex. Everything is, big dicks and big breasts and perfect orgasms. It's all hyper-real. We prefer the more real than real. And so this is the phantom world of the ghosts and avatars of postmodernity that has been unleashed after the war, that Pynchon, with this novel in particular, not so much with V is a different issue, is exploring the realm of the avatars. What I wrote about in my book, Dead Celebrities, Living Icons, the generation of avatars. And so this wannabe kid at the desk wants to be one of the Beatles, and he says, oh yeah, and I'm in a band, we're called the Paranoids. Naturally, the Paranoids, since paranoia is the main theme of this chapter. And then she goes into her motel room, and has gone to meet Metzger, whose name means butcher, remember, who is the co-executor of the will of Pearson Barreri, who has created this town. He's an absurdly rich real estate mogul, and he's created this town. And so Metzger shows up in the doorway with a bottle of wine. He's absurdly good looking, and she thinks, God, he could be an actor. Turns out he is an actor, as he then tells her that he used to be a child star named Baby Igor. So he used to be a child star, and he wants to get back into acting. So he's a former actor turned lawyer who wants to get back into acting. And there's been a TV pilot made about his life that never was aired. It's just rotting in some vault somewhere, where another person plays him, his friend called Manny Depresso, who plays his life. And Manny Depresso was a former lawyer turned actor playing him, who was a former actor turned lawyer. So this is the absurd world of celebrity avatars and fake realities. It's just an endless vicious circle of avatars and clones being generated through feedback. So this kid, so Metzger then. Now, they turn on the TV. They're both sort of flirting with each other. He pours out the wine. They drink through it pretty quickly. He produces a bottle of tequila. But what's on television is one of his movies. So they turn it on. He's like, oh, there, that's me. That's me. That's me. Baby Igor, who's in a role of this movie that Pynchon makes up that's hysterically funny, that has to do with the war, World War One, Gallipoli, the war on the Dardanelles, which is a miniature rehash of the Trojan War, of trying to get access to the Black Sea and get control over it to cut the Turks out so that the Allies can have full access. The Russians can send supplies through to the Allies and so forth. So that's the goal. So they're at Gallipoli, and it's a story about, as he puts it, my daddy, my doggy, and me. I don't think he gives the title of the film, but his daddy manages to build a miniature submarine, and the doggy is a Saint Bernard, who's on the submarine, and then the kid. I don't know how old, he's probably like 6 or 7 or 8 years old. And so they're on the sub, and they're secretly shelling the Turks. And the dog acts as a periscope. When they surface, he climbs up on top of the boat and acts as a periscope, and then goes down and barks where the Turks are. And so they're shelling the Turks. And it's a musical, naturally, with Pynchon. So they're singing songs, and Metzger sings along with the songs on television in perfect harmony. And he's trying to get Oedipa to join in. She's like, I don't want to. No, go ahead, enjoy yourself. Now note that this is exactly McLuhan's idea of television as a cool participatory medium. Media hot and cool with McLuhan. Hot media are minimal participation on the part of the person interacting with the medium, like a lecture is hot, and a seminar with maximum participation is cool. Comics are cool because they're low resolution. You have to kind of fill them in with your imagination. That's high participation. And as it was seeing jazz with syncopation is high participation. You have to fill in the missing notes. The detective story, as Poe invents it with Dupin, is a kind of do-it-yourself cooling down of the literary medium involving high participation on the part of the reader. You get to figure out the murder along with the detective, so the participation is high. Therefore, the medium is cool. So McLuhan says that the television is a very cool medium, extremely low resolution, fuzzy images that require high fill-in on the part of the viewer. Not only that, but the viewer, the situation with the movie projector and the screen are reversed. The viewer now is the screen, as David Cronenberg illustrates with his film Videodrome, which is about these ideas of McLuhan's. The viewer is the screen, the television is the projector. And so he has this difficult to grasp idea. People have a hard time with this, that the television is a tactile medium because it massages you. It impresses its images upon you and invites high participation. So it's an almost sensuous process. Hence his book, The Medium is the Massage. Television in particular does this. And this is illustrated in Cronenberg's Videodrome very, very well. Which I think also Cronenberg's Videodrome was inspired by this novel. Does the Videodrome conspiracy exist? Or is it just in the mind of the James Woods character, Max Rend? Is he just hallucinating it? Same idea here. So they're singing along, they're getting drunker and drunker and drunker, and then he wants to make a bet on how the movie's going to end. She says, well, that's not fair. You know how it's going to end. He's like, well, so what? How do you think it's going to end? And she says, well, all these movies have happy endings, these kinds of films. This was made in the 1930s. They all have happy endings. It's a happy-go-lucky film about my daddy, my doggy, and me. I mean, what's to predict? He's like, well, just make a prediction. And for the hell of it, she just says, okay, everyone dies. So she bets contrary to type and knows that she's going to lose, of course, naturally. And he says, okay, let's do strip botticelli then, which is like strip poker, same concept, except it's with questions. You have to remove bits of jewelry and clothing and so forth. So she says, okay, I'll be right back. She goes into the bathroom and loads herself up absurdly with layers of clothing. More and more clothing. And this is one of Pynchon's overdue scenes where she puts on so many clothes. She doesn't come out. She looks at herself in the mirror. She's like a beach ball with all these clothes, and it becomes a parody of consumerism and the satire for getting and acquiring the latest fashions as these extensions of the skin, of the epidermis, piling it on. And he just wants to see the real Oedipa underneath all this. And she would like to see the real Metzger underneath his avatar, his stupid Hollywood avatar that he can't let go of, and that he wants to get back into being. So he has put on the clothing of his avatar. She has put on all these clothes. And she knocks a hairspray can down that somehow breaks it and causes it to fly around the bathroom. And it breaks a mirror, shatters this mirror significantly, that it's a mirror that shatters. And Metzger comes in and falls on the floor with her while the can sprays around, causes all this chaos. And I guess the hotel room door is still open because when they look, they see Miles with his paranoids there. The band has joined him now. They're like, what are you guys doing? That looks fun. And there's some groupies there, some girls, and they're all outside. And Oedipa's like, well, sing us a song. Serenade us. So they go out to the pool. The pool's in front. The drummer sets up precariously on the diving board. I'm not sure how you would do that, fit drums on a diving board, but it's a funny image. And they plug in, they find outlets outside, and they start singing their little, whatever it is, Beatles type rip-off tunes. Called one, and the song itself is called Serenade. So they're just out there playing the guitars for the rest of the night, making a bunch of noise. It's kind of a party atmosphere. Although this is on a Sunday night, so it's hard to believe that the motel management would put up with this, but I guess Miles himself is the manager. So, and then so they start playing the strip poker. She's got too many things on for him to win. But what happens is that they do get so drunk that they have sex. Finally, she agrees somehow. She wakes up to him having sex with her. And then they both come at the same time, and the lights go out. And then what happens, I have to read the last paragraph of the chapter because it's hysterical. So the lights go out, and then her climax and Metzger's, when it came, coincided with every light in the place, including the TV tube, suddenly going out, dead black. It was a curious experience. The paranoids had blown a fuse. When the lights came on again, and she and Metzger lay twined amid a wall-to-wall scatter of clothing and spilled bourbon, the TV tube revealed the father, dog, and baby Igor trapped inside the darkening. Justine is the name of the sub. Note that that's one of Sade's novels, Justine. As the water level inexorably rose. The dog was first to drown in a great crowd of bubbles. This is not a Disney movie, apparently. The camera came in for a close-up of baby Igor crying. One hand on the control board. Something short-circuited then, and the grounded baby Igor was electrocuted. Thrashing back and forth and screaming horribly. Through one of those Hollywood distortions in probability, the father was spared electrocution so he could make a farewell speech, apologizing to baby Igor and the dog for getting them into this and regretting that they wouldn't be meeting in heaven. Your little eyes have seen your daddy for the last time. You are for salvation. I am for the pit. At the end, his suffering eyes filled the screen. The sound of incoming water grew deafening. Upswelled that strange 30s movie music with the massive sax section. In faded the legend, the end. And so she's won the bet, but it's a moot point by this point because Metzger was only after sex anyway. But absolutely hysterical that Pynchon puts that ending on a movie that it's like a Disney movie, but it's not. So this is, and there's also, I should say too, one final point about the chapter is that there's a dialogue here going on with Nathaniel West's novel, The Day of the Locust, written in the 1930s, which is one of the first great novels to satirize Los Angeles. In that novel, everybody wants to be an actor. And the novel is concerned with a series of wash-ups who haven't even had careers. They've been extras in various roles. And one of them is a former child actor, I remember, who's also a spoiled brat, hysterically funny. So there's a tradition here of satirizing the realm of what I call dead celebrities, living icons, the realm of avatars, which is a feedback effect generating avatar clones, like in Being John Malkovich, when Malkovich gets inside his own head and looks out and sees Malkoviches everywhere. That's the feedback effect. That is also the celebrity effect, the generation of these multiple clones, multiple avatars. And The Day of the Locust is the first to investigate this, which is also a very funny novel. And so Crying of Lot 49 belongs in that tradition, which goes all the way down then to Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers, which also satirizes the media, and then all the way down to David Cronenberg's last film, Maps to the Stars, which I think is an underrated film. It's pretty good, actually, which satirizes Hollywood. And there's a spoiled sport brat actor in that film as well, who murders his co-actor, child star, because he wants to be the famous one. And he and his sister end up committing suicide at the end. It's a great film. So from Day of the Locust down to Maps to the Stars, there's a tradition here of satirizing the hyperreality that America in particular has generated, a realm of shallow ghosts, clones, and avatars that begin at the level of celebrity. In the 1950s, the elite world with Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, James Dean. And then eventually when the internet comes along, this world becomes democratized so that now everyone can generate worthless, pointless avatars of themselves on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Look at me, I'm a star for 5 minutes. I can pretend to be Elvis Presley or Marilyn Monroe on YouTube with worthless, boring videos. That media has come along to democratize the initial cult of the dead celebrity that begins in the 50s, as I trace through my book, Dead Celebrities, Living Icons, which is now out of print, by the way. So if you want it, you got to track it down, an expensive used copy, probably for like $75 or something. Okay, so that's it for chapter 2 of Lot 49.